Thank you for joining the Istar Kr Community-Based Preschool Provider Introductory Session. Our session today will review the 2016 Istar Kr enhancements. We will walk through the administrator's responsibilities of adding staff members and students, and the educator's responsibilities of conducting the assessment and sharing access. First, let's look at the enhancements that affect all program provider types. Istar Kr is a tool that was created for our developmental preschools. The tool is created to track growth on students with developmental needs. It is normed to typically developing children and can be used with children all the way down through infancy. All program types that will be using the tool will notice the following adjustments. The assessment will always be available. In the past, sometimes the educator would find that the star was missing because there was an open progress monitoring. This often clogged the system and was very confusing. From now on, the assessment star will always be available and a new assessment can always be started. Programs will now be able to date the assessment. In the past, the assessment automatically time-stamped at the time of the data input. Now, that will still occur, but you will also have the opportunity to date when the assessment was actually conducted. We will also have the ability to share access to a child's record. This availability will not be accessible until late summer of 2016. Also coming in the late summer of 2016 is a Spanish version of the assessment. Today, our session will focus mostly on the changes for community-based preschool programs. The first change is that Istar Kr has been pulled out of Learning Connection and now exists on its own website. The URL for Istar Kr is now istarkr.doe.in.gov. And here in just a minute, we're going to go to the website and review what that new usability looks like. So program providers will no longer need to log into Learning Connection to access Istar Kr. Programs will now have the ability to create STNs and SPNs as well. It's important to note that existing users have migrated to the new portal. So let's go to the website and look what our community-based administrators will need to do to get started. Step 1 is to complete and submit the school creation form. All forms are located on the Istar Kr homepage. If you scroll to the middle of the page, you will see the section for community-based preschools, and you will see where you can find the school creation form. The school creation form will indicate a site's interest in using the Istar Kr tool. The completed form should be emailed to istarkr@doe.in.gov. An email response will be sent once the form has been processed. The response will contain a unique identifier assigned to the school called the school number. The school number is a combination of letters and numbers and will be used anytime the school or site communicates with the Indiana Department of Education. The email response will also include registration information for the site administrator. Schools who have an existing school number can move straight on to step 2. Let's start by looking at the school creation form. The school creation form is an Excel document that indicates a school is interested in using Istar Kr. Here you can see the information that's needed for this form. We will need the formal name of your school. It's important and really helps the system if you use the same name that you are registered with or licensed with the Office of Early Childhood and Out-of-School Learning. This really helps with consistency and allows us to share information across our state agencies. You can see the information needed is your school name, your address, and other information about your school. And important to note, this field where the school, the corporation that the early childhood preschool resides in, this is where the physical location of your building is. Not necessarily what schools do the children that attend your facility go to when they leave your school, but physically, where is your building located? On this form, you'll also see we're asking for the administrator's information. This is in order to create an SPN for the administrator so that they can have access to Istar Kr. The school creation form should be submitted only once Once a unique identifier has been assigned to a school, that will remain the school's number indefinitely. I'd like to point out at the bottom of all of our Excel spreadsheets, you will notice an Instructions tab. This tab shows you exactly what should be inputted in each of the columns. So if you ever have a question or are confused about what you should be putting in one of the areas where we're requesting information, you can always refer to the Instructions tab. The school creation form is the only form that is emailed to the Indiana Department of Education. This form, once completed, is submitted to istarkr@doe.in.gov. Moving on to step 2. We're going to go to the Istar Kr homepage. This is the new portal where Istar Kr now lives. The web address is istarkr.doe.in.gov. Here you will come to the Istar Kr login page. If you've previously logged in to Istar Kr through Learning Connection, your username and password will work at this website. If it is your first time to log in, you will need an SPN and you will need to use the register feature. We're going to look through that part when we get to the educator section. But for administrators, we're going to go ahead and log in. After a successful login, an Istar Administrator's home screen will display the following options. You will see My Istar Kr caseload. This will be the list of students assigned to the administrator's caseload. Very often, administrators have no students on their caseload because the students are assigned to the individual classroom teachers. Some programs choose for all of the students to be added to the administrator's caseload. This is a programmatic decision. You will also see the Add Find Student feature, Istar Kr reports, users, schools, community-based preschool SPN request, community-based preschool STN request, and request to join a school. Today we're going to get started by using the community-based SPN request. All educators who access Istar Kr will need an SPN, a school personnel number. Only Istar Kr administrators can create SPNs for new staff members. Educators with existing SPNs will not receive a new number. SPN creation is only for new Istar Kr users. SPNs are generated only once. So if you have staff members from last school year who had Istar Kr access, they do not need a new SPN. If you have hired a new staff member who has used Istar Kr at another school or site, you will not need to create an SPN for those users either. We will walk through the process of getting access for those users when we get to the educator section of our webinar. For all new Istar Kr users, an SPN will need to be generated. There are multiple options for creating the SPN. Option 1 is creating multiple SPNs in a single batch. In order to use this option, you must utilize Microsoft Excel. The staff roster, which you can locate on the Istar Kr homepage, will be utilized for option 1. Here you will see the information you need to supply in order to generate the SPN. You will need your employee's last name and first name. Remember to use their full legal name. The middle initial is optional. However, this does help identify the individual as a unique person. In the suffix column is where you would add things like junior, senior, or the third. The ethnicity codes can be found in the Instructions tab, which you can see at the bottom of the page. You will also note an employee email is essential for the creation of the SPN. An email address is only accepted into the system once. So if you use emails such as classroom6@Miss Aaron's Childcare, and each year that email address is passed on to a new user, it is possible that that address would not be accepted a second time. So it's important to have unique email addresses that your employees can regularly access. The email address is only used in order to generate a registration for Istar Kr and to help them recover their username or password. You'll also notice you'll list the school number that was created in Step 1 on this form as well. Once you complete the form with your staff information, you will save the form. It's important to save the file in a location that you can remember. When you go to save, you'll notice the format should be set to Excel workbook. This is the format that's compatible with our system. You will also need to name the file something that you can remember and relocate here in just a few minutes. Once the information is complete in the roster, you will go to the SPN request. Here you will see two boxes. The top box is made for multiple SPNs. This is where you will upload the Excel file that we just created. You will choose your file and you will make sure the file format is set to Excel. And then you will upload the file. Once you upload the file, a list will generate of all of the SPNs you have created. It is important to write down the SPNs as your educators will need those numbers in order to register for Istar Kr accounts. You'll also notice option 2 is available on this page. The second box allows you to create a single SPN at once. All of the same information is required as what we put into the staff roster. This option may be best if you are only adding 1 or 2 educators. It also may be convenient for those who are shy from using Microsoft Excel. It is important to remember to write down the SPN once you complete that process. Now we will move on to Step 4, loading your students into Istar Kr. All students using Istar Kr will need an STN, a student test number. This number will follow the child throughout their educational career in Indiana. In order for a community-based preschool to assign an STN to a student, a signed parent consent form must be collected. The student testing number stays with the child throughout their academic career, so the information that you're collecting on them today can be viewed by educators in the future to see a history of that child's educational records. It's important to remember, just like the STNs are generated only once. Accurate information is very important. Accurate information allows us to ensure that a child's record is generated only once. It's also important to understand that the STN may be held by only one school at a time. This sometimes restricts community-based preschool programs from accessing a student's STN. Let's look at the student roster. The student roster requires that you use the student's legal last name and their legal first name. Middle names, once again, are optional, however, are beneficial to uniquely identify the student. The student roster also requests the language code. You will notice in the tab section at the bottom of this spreadsheet, you will find a list of the language codes. Here you will find the language that the parent has identified the child speaks, and you will enter that code. Commonly used codes are 211 for English and 835 for Spanish. However, there are nearly 1,000 codes listed. It is also important to note that in the gender column, you will use just the letter M or F to identify the gender. You will not need to type out the entire word male or female. Again, the ethnicity codes can also be located in the tab section below. And don't forget about the instructions. Here you will see the allowable characters and any other notes that might remind you of what information is expected in each column. The Excel roster is used for creating STNs for a group of students. So this roster may be used at the beginning of the school year or anytime you see an influx in enrollment. It is important that the information is accurate. The information on the roster should be compared with the student consent form. Every child enrolling in Istar Kr through a community-based preschool must have a signed consent form. This form is available on the Istar Kr homepage and is available in Spanish. A few things to note about the form. The person who is able to provide legal consent for that child, their parent or guardian, should fill out the child's full legal name, the child's date of birth, and then they should fill out their relationship to the student. It's important to note that the person signing this form should be someone that has the legal authority to sign for the child. Often you will see a mother or father or a foster parent or a person that you know has legal authority to that child. So a grandparent or an aunt or uncle may also play that role. It's also important to ensure that the parent has filled out their full legal name and the correct date of birth. We have added an optional box for parents to help you in identifying the information needed for the student roster. Here, parents can identify their race or ethnicity and their home language. This form should be compared to the student roster and be saved in the student's file at your site. Once we have created the roster and we have saved it as an Excel file, we will go to the website to upload the roster. You will notice a checkbox that asks if we have a signed consent form for all students on our roster. It is important that a signed consent form is present at your facility for all students. If you do not have a consent form for a child, do not create an STN for them. Again, you will check the box. You will find the file where you have saved it on your computer. You will ensure that it's in the file format for the Excel, and then you will click Upload. When you upload, a list of the children's STNs will be generated. You will also notice that you have a single upload option as well. Again, you still need the signed parent consent form and all of the same information requested on the student roster. This option may be used if you are uploading one or two or a small number of students. Once you have created the STNs and SPNs, you are now going to assign students to your educator's caseloads. You will use the Add Find Student feature to do this. Using this feature, you can search for students. You can search for an individual student by using their last name and first name, or you can search for all students in your program. Today we are going to search for one student. Here you will see I have found Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is currently assigned to Case Manager Adam West. In order to reassign him, I would click on the box next to his name and use the Assign feature to search for the case manager I would like to assign him to. Today we're going to leave him assigned to Adam West because in just a minute we're going to log in as Adam and find Obi-Wan's records. The case manager can only see the students who the administrator has assigned to them. So the administrator must assign students before the case manager can conduct the assessment. Okay, let's look at a couple other options that you will need in order to get access for your case manager. If you look under the Schools feature, you will find access to your school. Here, you will find the educators connected with your school. This is where you will view permissions and set permissions for the educators. So, you will go to Set Permissions and determine the permission for that educator. It is permissible to have multiple administrators if that is your site's choice. Generally, classroom teachers have educator access. You want to make sure you save their access level so that when they log in, they can see the appropriate things. Let's go back to the Istar Kr homepage and look also for user information. Looking at the Users feature, you can search for educators or administrators assigned to your program. This feature allows you to help an educator reset their password, can help you locate their username, which is located next to their name at the top of the page, it is also where you can help them change or update their email address. It's important to remember that the user must have access to the email address that they have associated with their account. Now let's log in as an educator. Educators go to the same login page as administrators, istarkr.doe.in.gov. You'll also notice on this login page, users can recover their username or their password. Both of these pieces of information are sent to the email address associated with the user's account. Let's sign in. When an Istar educator logs in, they will see their caseload, Istar Kr reports. Educators can run reports only on students assigned to their caseload, and they will see a request to join school. First, let's look at the caseload. Here, you will see the star. The star is where you can create or edit an assessment. The next tool is the progress monitoring assessment. This is where you could open progress monitoring or view progress monitoring that was in place. Here you will see the student's files. Located here will be any records associated with this child's STN. So any finalized Istar Kr reports, including anecdotal notes and documentation. You will see student demographic information. Here you will see the access log. This tells you any individual, a case manager or administrator, who has touched this child's file. Here you will see student security. And if you click the red X, it will remove the student from your caseload. It does not currently remove this child from your school. In order to start the assessment, we will go to the star. Here you will see the first page of opening an assessment. You may choose if the child is 3 to 5 years old or if the child is younger. You will also note that you are going to select whether you're doing an interim, an exit, or an entrance assessment. Since our student, Obi-Wan Kenobi, has already had an entrance assessment, we can now conduct an interim assessment. It's important to note that our community-based preschools should not be filling out the exceptionality field. This field is reserved for our teachers of record at our local public schools. Now we will ask the system to create the assessment. Here it's going to give us the additional information about the assessment, where we can change information if we need to change the child's grade or the type of assessment that we're doing. It's going to verify once again that we want to assess the 5 developmental areas and we want to create a new assessment. Here we will click Finish. And a new assessment has been opened for our student. To access the actual assessment for each of the domains, you click on the pencil. Here is where you will score the assessment. You will score the assessment by clicking on the radial buttons. To look for the indicators for that area, you click on the icon next to it. It's important to note, to rate a child in a particular area, you must be achieving 50% or more of the indicators listed. So this child would need to achieve at least 3 of these indicators on a consistent basis. If the child was choosing fewer than 3, we may want to look back at the box before, because maybe this would be the appropriate area to rate that child. If the child was choosing greater than 3, 4, or 5 of those indicators, we may want to look forward for that child. Each time you log the information, the system saves it. At this point, you can change any rating. You may also add attachments. Documentation by clicking the paperclip. Documentation can be added for each of these ratings or for the developmental area overall. Once we have completed Obi-Wan's full assessment, you will see it tells you on the side how many threads are complete. Once each area is complete, you will get a green check. In order to finalize the assessment, all threads must be completed and you must pick a date of the assessment. The finalized box will not appear until all areas are complete and the date is chosen. It's important to remember that once you finalize an assessment, you cannot delete it. That is a part of the child's permanent record. Istar educators may also need to request to join a new school. An educator who is moving from one Istar Kr school to another Istar Kr school, or who needs access to multiple schools, would need to use this feature. Simply, they will select the school that they would like to join, and a request will be sent to the Istar administrator of that school. This concludes our short introductory session to Istar Kr, the enhancements for 2016. To find additional information, including printable administrator guides and educator guides, you may go to the Istar Kr homepage. The easiest way to access the Istar Kr homepage is through the Department of Education's homepage at doe.in.gov. Here you will find a search feature for Istar Kr. Using the search feature at the top of the page, you can locate the Kindergarten Readiness webpage. It'll be on this page where we add additional information, including the educator and administrator guides. You will also find on this page the printable version of the matrices for each of the 5 developmental areas. You may direct all questions to istarkr@doe.in.gov. This inbox is monitored by multiple individuals and is the quickest way to get responses for your Istar Kr questions. Thank you for joining us.